All right, let's talk about one of the twistiest, most brilliant psychological thrillers out there, Freida McFadden's The Housemaid. Today, we are going to completely deconstruct this thing. We're going to peel back every single layer and see exactly how this story plays with your mind. So let's just dive right in.
So the book just drops you right into it with this line. I did it. I'm guilty. Take me away. I mean, what a hook, right? It grabs you immediately. You're suddenly in an interrogation room. There's a woman confessing, but you and the detective in the room, you just get this feeling that something is seriously off here.
And that's the central question, isn't it? What did she actually do? And who even is this woman? So the story immediately yanks us back in time, 3 months earlier, to start unraveling this whole mystery.
Okay, so first up, a desperate maid's new job. And this is where we meet our main character, Millie Calloway. And let me tell you, she is down on her luck. We're talking living out of her old Nissan, totally broke, and absolutely desperate for a job. But here's the catch. She's hiding a pretty big secret, a prison record, which makes finding work, well, pretty much impossible. This job she's about to get, it is literally her last hope. So she lands this interview at the home of the Winchesters, and they seem like this picture-perfect, super wealthy family. Or so it seems. Through Millie's eyes, we get this totally classic Gothic setup. You've got Nina, the beautiful but, let's be honest, completely erratic wife. Then there's Andrew, the handsome, charming husband who seems like a perfect dad. Their 9-year-old daughter Cecelia is, well, she's kind of creepy. And the house? It's stunning, but you just know it's hiding something dark.
And right away, the red flags start waving. Her room? It's not some nice guest room. No, it's this tiny, boiling hot attic room, and the door locks from the outside. But the detail that'll give you chills, the scratches. Deep scratches on the inside of the door. You know immediately this room wasn't for storing boxes. It was for holding someone in.
So Millie's life just becomes this living nightmare, and it seems pretty obvious who's to blame. Nina. I mean, the contrast between the two of them is just stark. Nina is having these wild mood swings, making huge messes all over the house. And then there's Andrew, calmly and patiently cleaning up after her. She's cruel and jealous, while he's always complimenting Millie. Nina even says her daughter has a deadly peanut allergy, but then Andrew leaves a jar of peanut butter right out in the pantry. Every single sign is pointing to Nina being completely unhinged and Andrew being the poor, patient husband stuck with her.
All right, part 2, the perfect husband's dark secret. So naturally, Millie starts to feel sorry for Andrew. I mean, who wouldn't, right? She's getting closer to him, and this is where the story hits its first huge turning point. All those clear lines we thought were drawn between good and bad, yeah, they're about to get really, really blurry.
So Nina takes their daughter off to summer camp, leaving Millie all alone in the house with Andrew. And how convenient is that? Because Andrew immediately makes his move. He tells Millie that Nina, made a mistake with some non-refundable Broadway tickets. And would she like to go? So they have this magical night out, dinner, the show. And then, fueled by a little too much wine, Andrew confesses just how miserable he is with Nina. And of course, they're too drunk to drive home, so they end up in a single room at the plaza. It all feels like this massive betrayal, but also something we kinda saw coming.
And right after that night, bam! The author just drops this on us. Everything you think you know is wrong. The narrator switches, the entire story just completely flips on its head. This right here is where you realize just how brilliantly this book is put together. So, we're now in part 3, The Wife's Master Plan. And guess who's telling the story now? Nina Winchester. And it turns out, she's not the villain, she's not crazy, she's a prisoner. And every single thing we have seen so far, it's all been part of her incredibly desperate and honestly brilliant plan to escape.
So here's the horrifying truth. Andrew, he's the monster. He is a sick, manipulative, sadistic abuser. Remember those scratches on the attic door? Yeah, those were Nina's. He would lock her in there for days at a time to discipline her for tiny things like forgetting to turn off a light. It gets worse. He even framed her to make it look like she tried to drown their own daughter, just so he could get her institutionalized and have total, absolute control.
So Nina's plan was just
meticulous. You have to appreciate the detail. First, just endure and survive. Then, find a replacement. She specifically hired Millie because she was an ex-con who she knew Andrew would find attractive. Then, she orchestrated the whole affair by systematically acting crazy to push them together. Why? Because she knew the affair would be the one thing that would make Andrew finally kick her out, giving her and Cecelia the chance to escape for good. It was all a performance.
But her plan had an even darker layer. And this quote says it all. I hired her to kill him. She just doesn't know it. Remember Millie's secret prison record? Nina knew. She researched her. She didn't just hire a replacement. She specifically sought out a woman with a proven history of violence. She wasn't hiring a maid. She was hiring an avenger.
Next up, turning the tables. So, the story flips back to Millie's perspective. Nina's gone. Millie thinks she won. She finally has the man she loves. The perfect life is just ahead. Oh boy, she has absolutely no idea she's just walked straight into the very same trap Nina just escaped from.
And, of course, it happens. It doesn't take long at all. The second Millie does something he considers disrespectful, in this case to one of his precious books, Andrew's mask comes off, and he locks her in the attic. The exact same cycle of abuse begins all over again. But there's one big difference. Millie is not Nina. Millie fights back.
And this is where Nina's master plan finally pays off. Millie finds a bottle of pepper spray that Nina cleverly left behind, and she gets the upper hand. And what follows is just perfect, poetic justice. She doesn't just beat him, she systematically inflicts his own twisted punishments right back on him. When he locked Nina in the attic without water, Millie does the same to him. The way he tortured Nina over his books, she makes him balance those books on, well, you can see. He used pepper spray on Nina, she uses it on him. It's perfectly brutal.
And all of this brings us to the final act, the maid and the wife. This is the climax, where these two women who were supposed to be enemies formed this shocking and, deadly alliance.
5. That's how many days Millie leaves Andrew locked up in that attic. 5 days. No food, no water. His fate is completely sealed. And over those 5 days, Millie fully becomes the avenger that Nina knew was inside her all along.
So Millie is in full panic mode, thinking she's going back to prison for life. But then Nina returns, and instead of calling the cops on Millie, she protects her. It's amazing. Nina is the one who calls the police, and she confesses, but she frames Andrew's death as a tragic accident that she was responsible for. And then, in one last perfect twist, it turns out the detective investigating the case, his own daughter was once a victim of Andrew's, so he helps make sure Nina's story holds up. It's this incredible, unspoken alliance between them all.
So this whole thing leaves you with this really fascinating puzzle. Who is the actual victim here? Is it Millie, who is basically an unwitting pawn? Is it Nina, the mastermind who orchestrated the whole thing? Or is Andrew, the monster, somehow a victim of their revenge? The lines are just so incredibly blurred. The true brilliance of this book is that it forces you to keep asking yourself who the real victim and who the real villain is, and the answer is never simple.
So, how did the book pull off all these twists so perfectly? Well, it all comes down to a classic literary device, the unreliable narrator. See, for the first half, we're seeing everything through Millie's eyes, and we trust her, but her version of events is completely wrong. Then the author flips the script and gives us Nina's perspective, which reveals the actual truth. By using not one, but two unreliable narrators back to back, it keeps you, the reader, totally off balance the entire time.
And that really is the Housemaid in a nutshell. It's just a total masterclass in manipulation and misdirection. And it leaves us with this one really heavy question to chew on. When a victim becomes an avenger, where exactly is the line between justice and pure revenge? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for diving into this with me.